Okay, so I started recording. So, we've had a lot of some pretty uh, complex sessions with complex concepts last two, three, weeks. So I thought it might be a good idea to just kind of take a pause and make sure we're all on the same page. If there are any questions, so we can just discuss generally. I mean, what do you guys feel? You want to do that before we go further into next concept?
Yeah, I
Nahi,
think
thoda half an hour we can have the next concept and then
Okay.
go for questions and answers. Yeah.
Or the other way around. We can start with some questions and then see
something fresh.
something,
Yeah.
and see where we are landing.
I think
So,
Sanjay's fear is that if we start with the questions, we're never going to get to the concept.
I mean,
Yeah.
if we don't, we'll get there next time. I mean, it's not like
Well, I would like to start with a question,
yeah,
Dheeraj.
sure.
Because I think if you add more concepts and the base is not clear, then it will only just linger on and on, right? So
Sure.
can I start?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So, one thing that kind of confuses me a little bit is the concept of, consciousness, right? Me and consciousness. And I think the correlation, I understand the Mandukya Upanishad thing about, going deeper in and, you have, you are Turiya or Sakshi, right? That concept, right? The unchanging you, right? The Atman. But what causes a little bit of confusion to me is then we start talking about reflected consciousness, right? Which
About
is
what?
reflected consciousness,
Right. Okay.
right? Which is the concept of, Atman or, getting reflected in your mind, right? And getting correlated with ahankara or ego, right? And that's what we kind of experience, right? I mean, you can't directly experience turiya, right? Or sakshi. I wanted to make sure my understanding is correct, but I kind of struggle to understand. So what is the play of reflected consciousness? Are we talking about atman or turiya getting reflected in the mind, or are we talking about the bigger Brahman, external to our association getting reflected? Because you talk about the sun and that thing, right? So just clarify, what the role of these two consciousness are, and if there is any interrelation between the two. Are we talking about two separate phenomena here?
Yes. They're very. I mean, I'll tell you what. Just to kind of, your question is not unusual. In fact, Swami Dayanand, Carol's boss, he stopped teaching using this idea of reflected consciousness because he said people got confused. He said because people started thinking there are two consciousnesses. There is a reflected consciousness, and then there is a actual Atma or Brahman. And the people used to say, "Oh, I can feel my reflected consciousness, but I want to get to the actual consciousness."
Right.
And he said, then I decided it's not worth it. So he stopped teaching this concept altogether. But there is no, the reason why all these concepts are brought in is because for us to understand what Vedanta is saying is not easy. So they are trying to make it gradual, they are making piece by piece, gradually, like I told you before, right? They will tell you something based on where you are, take the next step. Then they will go, when you go there, then they'll say, no, that is also not correct, take the next step, discard what you are. This is part of the same process. So if I was to, the reality is that there is only one Brahman. That is all there is. There is nothing called reflected consciousness. There is only one consciousness. But the problem in saying that to people is, if I tell someone that there is only one consciousness, there is nothing called reflected consciousness, they say, no, but I feel my own consciousness. And I feel it is separate from everybody else's. And my mind is the conscious mind, right? So it is very difficult for that person to grasp the idea that there is only one consciousness. So they say, okay, let's go about it in stages. Let's first say, okay, let's say you feel there is a mind. You feel the mind has consciousness. Okay, let's call it the reflected consciousness. It is not, first you tell them, okay, this is your consciousness, but it's not really your consciousness. It's not generated by your mind. Because people think that the consciousness is generated by the mind. They're trying to tell you that it's not actually generated by the mind. It is reflected. There's an outside source from which it is reflected. This is just to first get you to understand that there are two different things, the mind and the consciousness. The mind does not create the consciousness. There is the mind, there is the consciousness, and you have to try to separate them out first. That consciousness is different from the mind. So that is why they say reflected consciousness. So that you start thinking, okay, what I call the mind is fine. I think my mind generates my consciousness, but actually there are two different things. Then you tell them that actually there is no reflected consciousness even. There is only one consciousness. Now, it's in your, the reason that you feel, and then you go on from there, right?
Yeah.
So yes, you're absolutely right, and I'm very glad you asked this question. There are no two consciousnesses. There is no Turiya separate from Atma, separate from Brahman. There is only one thing called Brahman. It's not even a thing. We can call it consciousness. We can call it Turiya. We can call it Brahman. We can call it Atma. There's only one. But in the beginning, we make a difference between Paramatma, Jivatma, reflected consciousness, original consciousness, right? We make all these differences. Atma, Brahman. Most people, if you tell them Atma, they'll say that is mine, me, the real me. Brahman, that is out there, the cause of the world. Then you tell them, no, that Atma and Brahman is the same.
Yeah.
But just saying is not enough, people have to kind of understand. Yeah.
I think your input here really helps in the sense that, when you learn and read, it's hard to understand the correlationships because there's just so many twists and turns in the way Vedanta presents these
Absolutely.
concepts.
100%.
Yeah. So, the other additional question which also got answered is, when we say Jivatma, what do we mean here? Which Atma are we talking about? Right?
Exactly.
I mean,
Jivatma is the same as reflected consciousness, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, so that's actually good because
Yeah.
My confusion was when you talk about the Jivatma, are you talking about the Turiya part, or are you right? I mean, it's like, okay, what is this now, right? And how do I digest it?
That is why they say you should only learn Vedanta with a teacher.
Teacher, yeah.
Because what you are learning in Vedanta cannot really be expressed in words. So even the teacher, like for example, you think you're clear now, you will have a next thing which will be unclear. Then another thing will come up which is unclear. And all a good teacher will do for you is he'll keep pointing you out. Every time you're telling you little fine-tuning, till one day you just get it. Then it'll all click into place. But you can't do this fine-tuning with books. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Because we're using words to describe something which cannot be described in words. That is the problem. Like even the word consciousness, it creates so much confusion because you start thinking, because we have an association with the word consciousness. We know a person when he's conscious and we know a person when he's unconscious. So we think consciousness is related to the state when the person is conscious. That is not consciousness. Even an unconscious person is not removed from Brahman. It's still part of Brahman. There is all these distinctions, but some word has to be used for Brahman. So they try to see which words can lead you closer to the thought. So they took this word called consciousness or chitta. Then they took another word called existence, sat. Right? So they are taking these words, but the meaning of these words have to be unfolded so that you can properly understand what they're trying to say, what they're trying to indicate. These are all pointers, right?
Yeah.
it is trying to say is that ultimately Brahman is nothing that you can describe.
Yeah, it's undescribable.
Yeah, till you get it in your head that it is something I can't experience, I can't describe, and you're okay with it, right?
Mhm.
You're not going to get it. Because it is very difficult to be okay with this fact that, it is something which can't be experienced, can't be described. And you'll say, what the hell? Because you've never come across this kind of thinking, this kind of understanding before in anywhere in your life. Every
Yeah.
time we have to understand, describe, teach, learn, it's a very different concept.
Yeah. I mean, since you're talking about this, the other thing I was just thinking through again is, the concept of, this awareness or consciousness versus, so these are, how, at least you try to understand Brahman, but like you said last time or the time before that, the light reveals, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's it, I don't know whether I'm using the right
No, no,
terminology,
right.
that it's a property of or incidental property of light, right? So I was just
Right.
trying to, kind of equate that to, awareness or sakshiness or presence, right? I
Yeah.
mean, these are hard concepts to kind of grasp
Yeah. Yeah.
about
Yeah.
consciousness, right, or awareness. So I guess, I think you also explained that when we see objects, right, you're seeing shape and form, and then um, Brahman, or a reflected consciousness in the object, right? Um, and that's how things get known, because we are Brahman, the object is Brahman, and suddenly magic happens, right? And we become aware of things.
Right.
But help us, if you could spend a little bit of time on, or your understanding of how does knowledge happen, right? In conscious beings, right? What's the role of consciousness in knowledge, right? How do we learn something?
So, um, there was another thought I had when you started talking about this. Yeah. So first of all, this analogy of light and all these analogies, they have very limited sort of domain in which they work. So you can't extend them beyond that domain, right?
Okay.
So because there is no analogy which can be given for
Yeah.
consciousness, for Brahman. There's nothing like it. So nothing can be said, okay, this is like this. But you can take parts of it. So to give you different windows, you try to take parts of it and explain. So you think about it like this. Then you think about it like this. Then you think about it like this. So in your mind, you'll kind of develop a composite picture. So when it comes to light, the reason the light analogy is given is to say that nobody has actually seen light,
Mhm.
right? But we are all
Yeah.
aware. We have no question in our mind that there is light existing.
Light. Yeah.
How do we get that awareness that light exists? Is because when we see the room lit up.
Yeah.
What does room lit up mean? The objects are lit up. It's not that there is light around us and we can see that.
Yeah.
We are actually seeing lit up objects. If right now there was no object in the room around you, no object, it'll be completely dark, even though the sun is shining.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be completely dark. You wouldn't know that light exists. The
Mm-hmm.
reason you're sure light exists is because there are all these objects. And there is no doubt in your mind that light exists. You know it, but you know it because the objects are lit up. The walls are lit up, everything is looking bright, so you know light exists. So they're trying to say that when you look around you, you experience things. You're hearing things, you're feeling things, you're seeing things. All these things are happening. You're not even thinking about it, but you are. You go out, you see flowers, you feel the wind in your skin, you have emotions that you're experiencing so many things. Just like a light is necessary for you to experience everything, consciousness is necessary for you to experience the rest of life. So, because you experience everything, that's why you know that consciousness exists. That's what they're trying to say. Don't look for consciousness as an object, trying to
Yeah.
say, oh, I want to experience consciousness. No, you don't directly experience consciousness. You know that consciousness exists because you experience everything else. That's the analogy with light, right? That's what they're trying to say. So this is a concept you have to understand that,
Okay.
I don't want to, just like you say, I'm not going to go looking for light photons, right? You're not going to go looking for consciousness as an object. So that's the purpose of that analogy. Now, actually, that's what you asked is a very good question, which is, how do we know?
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about it? Like, how do we actually know? Why is it that when something is in front of my eyes, I see it? Like, why? Like, how does this knowledge happen? Because, and this is a, depending upon what, uh, which angle you're asking this question from, the answers could be different. So if you ask the question, how does the knowledge of a particular form happen or a particular thing happen? That's a different question. So you can say, how do I, as the subject, as the knower, know something which has a particular form? That form could be a physical form. It could be a mental form. It could be just like an emotion. How do I know an emotion? An emotion is happening. How do I know a thought? How do I see something? How do I hear something? All of them are forms. So it's called a vritti, a form. A form doesn't only mean something that like a picture. A form can be anything, like in the shape of a sound, in the shape of a feeling. All these are forms. So that's one question. The other question is, how does knowledge happen in the first place? Like how, even at a paramarthika level, like how does knowledge happen? So what you have to understand is that at the paramarthika level, there is no knowledge happening. At the level of Brahman, no knowledge is happening. Nothing is
Because
happening.
everything is
There's no
known,
space
right?
and time.
Everything,
Huh?
everything is known to Brahman. So
Well, that is one way of
yeah.
looking at it. Another way of looking at it is, what is there to know when there is no space and time? Right? So you can put it like that.
Yeah.
So the knowledge is only happening when there is a limitation. Only then knowledge happens.
I see. Okay.
If you don't know something and then you come to know it, that's what knowledge is.
Knowledge.
Unless there's ignorance, there cannot be any knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Knowledge only happens in the presence of ignorance. So that is why the avarna shakti of Maya creates the ignorance so that knowledge or experience can happen. Without ignorance, there is no experience. There's no fun also. So that's all. But why does the knowledge happen? Why is it that something is known? Because that is now, I'm going to introduce a complex thought to you. To me, it is not complex because I've thought a lot about it. But every time I've introduced it, people have glazed over. So that is why I'm saying it's a complex thought. But this is something for you to think about. That for any experience to happen, it can only happen between two things which are alike. Any interaction can happen between two things which are alike. In other words, if there was nothing in common, there'll be no interaction. Let's say if you're saying a charged particle is interacting with another charged particle, both of them have to have electric field common to them. That is why they attract. If a neutron is getting closer to a neutron, both of them have to have the closed nuclear, the what's it called? The strong nuclear field together. That is why they're attracted. If I have a charged particle and the other one has no charge, right? Well, if it'll induce a charge in this presence, that's what we're attracted. What I'm trying to say is, if one particle is one thing and the other is something else, there will be no interaction, no exchange. One particle won't even know the other exists. Just the example for that, the closest example in physics is something called neutrinos. Neutrino is an elementary particle which is produced every time there's a nuclear reaction. So in the sun, there's a lot of nuclear reaction going on. So neutrinos are produced in the trillions and gazillions. And through every second, we have like trillions of neutrinos which are passing through our body right now. They're passing through our body from there. They're also passing from they're passing from under the earth, because and they're coming to us from underground. In other words, they're coming from the other side of the earth and coming to us from stars. We don't feel, none of our instruments record it also, because neutrinos do not interact with any of the other particles that we are made of. They have, in fact, actually, we won't even know. The reason we know it is because they have very, very, very minute interaction. So one in like hundreds and hundreds of trillions will interact. But there are so many that we have been able to discover that one. They created some very big experiment where they went underground and they put some silver oxide or something which can detect it, and they found a few neutrinos. That's how we know. But there could be so many different things happening with which we don't interact, which we don't even know exist. They've already said there's something called, dark matter, which is there. You can see evidence of it because it affects the space-time. It makes it curved, so that is why it affects gravity. So you can see that things are not behaving the way gravitation laws want it to behave. It looks like there's a lot of matter, but we can't see it. We can't interact it, we can't find it. So the point I'm trying to make is, for any interaction to happen, for any knowledge to happen, there has to be similarity. The two things have to interact. They have to be the same. That is conclusive proof, actually, that the me, which is knowing, and the object which is known are the same. The substance is the same. Vedanta says that also. And it says, without giving all these scientific things, it has said this, that they are the same, and that is why they are the same, and that same is Brahman. This is like to me, it was a very, very big penny dropping in my head.
Mhm.
But I don't know whether it is a penny dropping in your head. That's a matter to
But
be.
that is
It
only
needs
if
to-
there's two conscious sentient beings, right? So you're not going to say the table is going to know me. The table substrate is the same as my substrate, but the table doesn't have the table. You're
Well,
not going to say
you
the
know the
table.
table, right? If you know the table, then the
I know the
table.
table,
Yeah.
but the
So how
table.
would you know it? How would you know it if it wasn't the same?
No, but the table is the same as me too. The table doesn't know me, right? Because the table is.
Okay, that's a different thing. Whether the table, but that is not the point. What we are trying to say is that the essential material of the table and you is the same. Otherwise, you
Okay.
wouldn't know the table. Now, whether the table knows you or not is not the way to think about it. The thinking about it is, what have you identified yourself with? You identified yourself with the body, so you know the table. You identify yourself with the table, you'll know the world too. But you can't. That's a different thing. But it's not as if there is a. And that's why I don't want to. Let's not go further into this than this.
Okay.
The only thing I wanted to say was that knowledge happens because the two things are the same. It's not that knowledge happens because of consciousness. It's because two things are the same that knowledge happens, and it appears to us as consciousness. When interactions happen, it appears to us as consciousness.
Wait, can you say that? So knowledge doesn't happen because of consciousness.
No. I'm saying we think that there is something called consciousness because of which knowledge happens. I'm saying that's not the way to think about it. The way to think about it is that when two things are the same,
Mm-hmm.
there will be exchange. And that exchange is what we call consciousness, is what consciousness is. But again, the purpose of the Q&A was to not go into to keep it simple. We have to retract, as they say, वो क्या कहते हैं कोर्ट में इसको disregard किया जाए.
We'll have a
This should
Q&A about the Q&A.
They should be struck off the records. So I honestly don't think it's a good idea to go further than that. I've already made one mistake last time when I spoke about all these 3 dimensions and 4 dimensions. I realized I lost whole, so I don't want to go there now. Okay, enough. Rajiv, you ask, your questions are not allowed.
Rajiv, they were fantastic questions. They're really great questions. The same questions that I have, actually. So thank you for asking.
I think it's a privilege to have Neeraj you here because these are you go and if you don't have somebody to answer these questions, right, they can take you into some tricky spaces, right, and then you get frustrated. So I'm glad there's an outlet here to kind of ground yourself and make sure, these transition ideas are confusing with the real end result, right? At times, because they contradict what you learn from one section versus the other. So this has actually been great because the fact that these are all transitional things to make us understand different concepts, reality around Brahman, and it's hard to understand the overall package, but at least now okay, we're talking about a transition here, and really, the message or the real truth still remains the same.
Absolutely, 100%. And the problem is that, these are all made for different times to be unfolded in sequence
Yeah.
in a Gurukulam. Now we have access to everything, and we are smart people. So we see everything all at the same time. And now we are trying to work back and try to correlate. So that is why. But really, I mean, that's all you need to do. And once you get this idea that these are transitional things, then things start falling into place. I mean, to me, another important thing was Brahma Sutra. That's a very nice, conceptually, again, I'm trying to keep it simple. It said in Brahma Sutra, there is one sutra which says Tattu Samanvayat. It's the fourth sutra. It's trying to say, basically, it's trying to say, what is Vedanta all about? People have so many ideas about Vedanta. Some people think Vedanta is about, rebirth. It's about karma. It's about doing the right thing. Karam yoga, ye, wo, ye. Itni sari cheezein hain Vedanta mein. Right? It's ethics. So what it's trying to say is that the Samanvaya of Vedanta, that means the central harmonizing theme of Vedanta, which holds it all together, it's the proof, or it tells you of the existence of Brahman. That's what Vedanta is. Without Vedanta, you would never know Brahman. In other words, without Vedanta, you'll never pay attention to yourself as the observer. You would be only thinking about the world and the objects and trying to learn about the objects. You'd be saying, ye aise hota hai, wo aise hota hai, and you'll keep learning. You'll learn, you'll open a window, there'll be 5 more windows open. Then you dig into that, there'll be more. The more answers come to you, the more questions are revealed. Right? So you'll learn more and more and more, and there will be an illusion of progress. That we are making progress. But you will never ask the question, who am I who's actually learning all this? Because you don't have an answer to it. Your methods of finding about the rest of the world do not apply to answering the question, who am I? So we give up. So what is Vedanta? Vedanta is the proof or the pramana for telling you about you, the observer. What is your nature? What are you? And it tells you you're Brahman. So now, before learning Vedanta, when you think about the world, you'll think about everything else. All disconnected pieces. Everything separate from each other, interacting with each other, gravity, gravity, God knows what all is happening, emotions, all disconnected pieces. After learning Vedanta, you will say, yes, all these pieces, but how did I miss that the underlying reality of all these pieces is Brahman, which is one Brahman, which is me. So then those pieces are connected now, and the picture is whole, and you are connected also with the pieces. You're thinking about the question that you ask, like this question that you asked, how does knowledge happen? Right? It'll be very hard. People don't usually ask this question. Even when they ask, it's a very superficial level of questioning. Those things, consciousness, knowledge, it's happening, experience, they're taken for granted. The process of that is taken for granted. Only the objects which are being experienced, that is what we are asking about. So that is the saransh of Vedanta. And in fact, Swami Paramathananda gave a very nice example, and I think I may have shared this with you guys. He said, think about it like this. When an election is going on, you go and listen to a speech. So candidates are giving all kinds of speeches. कोई कहेगा एजुकेशन नहीं है, कोई कहेगा हिंदुत्व, कोई कहेगा माइनॉरिटी राइट्स, कोई कहेगा डेवलपमेंट. कोई कहेगा दुनिया में क्या हो रहा है, sociology, environment, all kinds of issues are raised. But what is the samanvay of the message of every candidate? The samanvay is vote for me.
Vote for me.
At the end of the day, that is what he's trying to tell you. Vote for me. He's raising all the issues that have to be raised all around because he's trying to connect with you. Like he's trying to find where you are and connect with you. If you are a person who is strong into ecology and environment, he's trying to connect with your environment. If you're strong into Hindutva, he's trying to connect with you on Hindutva. If you're strong into economy, we must be growing and everything, he's trying to connect on economy. He's trying to connect where you are so that he can bring you to his fold and tell you, vote for me, so that you can listen to that message. It's the same thing with Vedant. Vedant is trying to connect with different people who are out there living in the world of samsara. But they don't really, they are lost. So some people can get connected when you tell them, Bhagwan, Ishwar Paramatma hai. वो सब करता है. So that is the way of connecting. Some people will connect when you tell them, don't worry, you're not dying. After death, there's a rebirth. And after, this will happen, because there are that's a big concern to people. So they connect like that. So there are different ways in which people connect, because different places where they are. And the beauty of Vedanta is that it not only has the answer, the truth, it's trying to tell you something. The whole parampara, the truth part is very simple. The whole parampara is built on how am I going to connect with these different people so that I can take them to knowledge. So what they find is it is necessary to connect. So they have all these different ancillary disciplines, but they also realize that even after that, we can't possibly take them without a guru. There has to be a person who knows this, who can guide them through the process. Because without that person, it is very difficult to explain. I mean, there are not enough words to explain everything, right? So that is how Vedanta works. And that is why the 90% of the words address 10% of the value, right? But that 90% of the value needs only 10% of the words. But you as a person have to be ready to be able to hear those 10% words and make sense out of them and understand what they're trying to say.
So, Dheeraj, I just want to share this with you that in my experience, when like I said, I told you I've read quite a bit, listened quite a bit, but the easiest path to understanding who I am is really, I really like the Mandukya Upanishad, because it takes you through everyday experiences that you are having, right? And takes you through the idea of the Brahman, and it nicely correlates to these other states, right? The waking, the dreaming, and the deep sleep, and correlates it to duality, where duality is happening, where it's not happening, and also what is the other one? The space time dimension stuff, right? All packaged nicely into, okay, in this state, all of this exists. In the next state, okay, the body is gone, right? It's just your mind. So, the body is false. There's no reality, right? And it's a compressed space and time model, right? I mean, there is space and time, but it's more compressed than, or duality, but it's they call it compressed, states. And then you go to your next state, right, which is dream, deep sleep, and space time is gone, body is gone, mind is gone, right? But there is something there because you come out of it and you say, I had deep sleeps, so it's I find that very, very simple. To me, I don't know, maybe it's my scientific background
I
that
think it's your
it's a
scientific
lot of
background.
elimination. Yeah.
It
It's
is.
elimination.
I had the same experience. I also really found it very, very direct and very straightforward and very effective. You know,
Yeah.
for example, it says dream and reality, Gaudapada, he combines them into one. He says there is really no difference between dream and waking state.
Mhm.
It's the same thing, just different mechanisms, the different, it's essentially waking and dream is one state. So what I'm trying to say is that that is correct. I also find it like that, but be open to the others also,
Also, yeah.
because they also will give you, and the reason why I think you find it like this is because you have a top-down view of thinking. You like to think about, okay, tell me what is the actual answer, what is the real thing, and then you start to think from there, and then you say, okay, why is all this confusing at the bottom below? You know, why am I getting different messages if I'm thinking from here? Right?
Mhm.
And that is what you are asking. Then I tell you it's transition.
Yeah.
It makes sense to you. But many people think bottom up. They are not able to think, conceptualize what Mandukya is saying, um, because it is so unrelated from their day-to-day life. For them, it is very important to start from where they are living today. Like, tell me first, what am I seeing around me? Don't tell me about a conceptual thing that I am a Brahman. Right? So there are different kinds of people. That's why there are different kinds of Upanishads, and that's why there are so many different methodologies. And I've been going through this. I haven't read all the Upanishads, but I've been through the summaries. There's a class that Swami Paramarthananda takes, and I would really highly recommend that person to you, Swami Paramarthananda. He
Okay.
is ideal for you because he has a app. In that app, he has thousands of hours of lectures. All his lectures have been recorded, and he's a prolific speaker, prolific teacher. He's taught by Swami Dayanand Saraswati, who's like our guru. And I even met him this time when I went to Madras. And he has, if you can just, because you have to go through it. It's like you may have to go through it 2 or 3 times, a particular lecture, to really understand it. But he's a very logical person who explains everything in a very logical, organized way. It just needs a lot of time. That's what you have to be able to devote. So why was I saying this? So I was saying, yeah, as you go through it, you go through the different Upanishads, you'll see how they have different ways of approaching and why they have different ways of approaching. So there's a very interesting Upanishad. It's called Taittiriya.
Mhm.
So that's another one for you to, I would recommend you see. It's very comprehensive. So it has three chapters. And in 2 chapters, it describes Brahman from 2 different ways. So in first chapter, it talks Brahman top down. So Brahman is Sat Chitananda. That's called the Swarupa Lakshana of Brahman, the intrinsic nature of Brahman. And in another chapter, he approaches from bottom up. He says Brahman is the cause of this universe. Jagat Karana Brahman. That is called the Tatastha Lakshana. I can't even say it. Tat, Jamuna ka tat hota hai na?
Mhm.
Tatastha Lakshana of Brahman. Meaning incidental, meaning it's going like that is because people see the world around them and they want to know what has caused this world, what's the cause of this world. So Brahman is the cause of the world. That's how they start. The cause of this world, right? So it's just, but you're right, there are different methodologies. Mukta.
How would you describe Maya?
That's a very, I don't know whether anybody can describe Maya. So I can, it's undescribable.
I mean, not
Unadvertनीय.
describe or explain.
Yes, explain I can do. I can tell
Yeah.
you Maya, I can give you an example which will tell you what Maya is.
Dheeraj, sorry
Can't
for
describe you.
interrupting.
We can't replicate
Since
Maya.
we were, sorry for interrupting. Since we were discussing Brahman, if I am Brahman, why don't I feel and act like Brahman? I should feel like Brahman.
So what does Brahman feel like? What would you have to feel like Brahman?
There I am confused.
Okay, that's because we have these concepts.
I behave like a body-mind complex.
No,
My
you mean to say,
behavior and thought process and everything, it's on the body-mind complex thing.
I think what you're trying to say is
I
that,
am this body, I am this mind, I'll
yes,
behave
yes,
that way.
yeah,
I'm think.
yeah, and because that is because you are this body mind. You are this body mind complex. Okay? Nobody is saying that you're not this body mind complex. See, that is a wrong way to think about it. You are Sanjay. You are different from Rajiv and me and Kiki and everybody else. You have to live in this world. You have to behave your entire genes, everything is put in place for your survival, for you to behave in a particular way, right? So you are Sanjay. Nobody is saying you're not Sanjay. All Vedanta is saying is that this Sanjay that you are has a deeper reality, which is Brahman. Which, in other words, this Sanjay is a name and form. The substance of this thing that you call Sanjay, this thought that you have, I'm Sanjay, this feeling that you have, that has a deeper, that thought, the name and form looks like Sanjay, but the thought itself has a deeper reality, which is Brahman. That's what it's trying to say. And the reason it's telling you this is so that you can get the right picture. You can understand that when you say Sanjay will die, I will die, the body mind will die, but you will not die. And this is not something you can properly you know having known this, it makes a difference to your life. It makes a difference in how you operate and behave in this life. That's what it's trying to say. So you will always feel like you're Sanjay. You will always feel that you are separate from everybody else, but you will know that you are not, that in reality, you're feeling like this, but in reality, you're not separate from everybody else. You're separate if you're looking at it at the level of Atul and me and Kiki and you and Sanjay. But if you're looking one level below, you're not separate. That's what it's trying to say. That's what you have to understand. But when you say, I have to feel like Brahman, that is just another way of saying, I need to experience Brahman. I need to experience myself as Brahman. That is what you're saying. And that, I told you, is impossible. Don't even go there,
That is
because
impossible.
actually in Mandukya, your brother's favorite Upanishad, Gaudapada gives 4 obstacles to knowledge. And he has, I won't go to the other 3. It's Laya and Vikshepa and so on and so forth. The 4th obstacle he gives is this desire to experience Brahman. He says that's one of the biggest obstacles to knowledge. Because that desire to experience Brahman is so strong that it keeps you from understanding the message of Vedanta. And he says, drop it, give that up, put that aside, and now listen to Vedanta. Because it's trying to tell you something which you won't hear, because your mind is already full of a desire to experience Brahman. There's no place for it to hear what Vedanta is saying. So put aside this thing that you have to feel like Brahman. That is if that is what you want, Vedanta will not give you that. Actually, we are saying nobody will give you that. But if you don't believe it, try it out. Try other places. Then come back after you're convinced. Right? But what it's saying is, what Vedanta can do is give you the understanding, the knowledge, so that you know that you're Brahman, not that you feel like Brahman. You can feel happy. That's the Anand, that is the Anand, Anand Mimamsa we did last time. You can, through this knowledge and by working on your mind, by working on Antakarna Shuddhi, you can feel happiness. You can feel contentment. You can feel joy. You can feel wholeness and completeness. But you should realize that all those things are not Brahman. They're just you. Just a purer version of you, of your mind. Right? So that's what Vedanta is saying. So you will never feel as if you are one with everything. Those kind of mystical experiences Vedanta has no place for. There is no mysticism here, not at all. In fact, actually, I wish I could read out. I wrote down the passage from Swami Paramarthananda. I thought at some stage I will read it out to you, not right now, where he goes into detail on these. And he tells you, he's talking, or he said this, that we don't believe in this. We don't believe in mysticism. This is not mystic. This is pure common sense. That is how you have to approach it. So, so where was I? Yeah. So you're not going to feel any different, but you're going to know. And that it's just like you can't see the light, but you know that it's lit. It'll be that knowledge. You work on the knowledge, and that knowledge will bring you conviction without the actual experience. And it's hard for you to believe that and understand it, because so far, every time we need experience and conviction, we've said we need experience. Our conviction comes through experience. That's all we know. But here he's telling you, no, the conviction will come through knowledge. You have to work on that knowledge. You have to make sure that any doubts around the knowledge are removed. You have to keep working on it. And that working on it is by doing what we're doing right now. You're asking the questions, I'm giving you the answers. Some of that part of the answer is going to give you some satisfaction, some will not. But gradually, you'll begin to reorient the way you think so that you can see what Vedanta is trying to tell you. But this is what working on it means. Yeah. So I'm not sure I'll think again about your question when I listen to this again. I will think about it and I will answer it more, because I found this all the time. It happens. I'll listen back to the recording and then I say, oh, you know what? I didn't really address it. I could have answered it better like this, because in the spur of the moment, it's hard for me to come up with exactly the precise answer. But I will think about it, and if something comes up, I will get back a better answer for you.
Yeah, Dheeraj, one thing that is, I'm just correlating this to what I learned from the Mandukya Upanishad is the deep sleep state, right? When you wake out of deep sleep state, you feel happy and rested, is because there is no concept of the universe, right? There's no suffering coming in that state. And, that's why you feel whole and happier. So I felt like that I can relate to that, I'm away from duality. I'm away from my desires. My mind is shut down, right? And so the wholeness, the happiness that comes from that state, one can correlate.
Yeah, there's another way of
maybe that's
it's actually another view or another perspective on Anand Mimamsa.
Yeah.
What it's saying is that the happiness which comes out of deep sleep has not come out of some object, because there were no objects then. It's come out of your own nature.
Own nature, yeah.
Right? That's why you're happy. It's the same thing as Anand Mimamsa. And the same happiness of deep sleep you can achieve if you purify your mind. If you get rid of your own issues in the mind, your own, why do you suffer?
Yeah.
That suffering is because of us. So we can work on removing the suffering even when we are awake. So we can get that happiness.
Yeah.
That's the whole idea of Anand Mimamsa.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't experience Brahman. In other words, actually when you're deep sleeping, in let's say 8 hours of sleep, your deep sleep may be just 2 hours or 1 hour even. That 1 hour, there is no time. You can't say, okay, during this time I was in deep sleep. You can say about everything else. You can say about transitions. In dream, you have time, you can experience. But in deep sleep, there is no experience. Because there is no time. You're like, what will you experience? Yet you're happy coming out of deep sleep, because you're happy because that is who you are. That is your nature. That's what it is.
Yeah.
But I also want to, I know I'll come back to Sanjay. I want to answer Mukta's question, which is Maya. So I'll give you I'll try to tell you what, for me, is the best example of Maya. So Maya is our ability to create a name and form, a manifest name and form from knowledge. That's Maya. From nothing, we can create a manifest name and form. That's Maya. So when we say that Ishwar has created this world, it's a technology. Think about it as a technology with which you, from nothing, you create something. So that's one part of it. And the other is that you can also hide. That's the second part of Maya. But let's talk about the first one. So when you sleep, that's the best analogy to me. When you go to sleep and you dream, right? What is happening is you have thoughts in your head. Thoughts are like knowledge. They're unmanifest thoughts. You're not even thinking. It's just there are wrinkles and thoughts in your head. But when you're dreaming, you have taken those thoughts and created a whole world. A whole world in which both parts of Maya are happening. You have created the world and you can see it. And you also created a you, which is seeing the world. In other words, I told you, for experience to happen, you have to have ignorance. So you created a world in the dream where things are going on. You created a you in that dream and you gave it ignorance. Because everything in the dream is coming from you. Whatever is happening in the dream, you would have known. You know, nobody else is creating. Let's say dream mein tu chal rahi hai and you get hit by a bus. It's not that you didn't know that the bus is coming. The bus has been in your mind. The fact that the bus is going to hit you also was decided by you. You only created the bus. You only created the bus coming and hitting you. But you were surprised in your dream when the bus hit you. Because you did two things. You created a dream from some thoughts, a whole world. You created a you and you gave it ignorance. That you made it feel as if the bus, it doesn't know whether the bus is going to hit you or not. And when the bus hit you, you got surprised. You felt pain, everything. If you ask the dream Mukta in the dream, Mukta, I'm telling you, this bus has been created by you. You are the same thing. That everything in there is just the same as you. If I was to go into the dream and tell that dream Mukta, Mukta will say, no, I don't feel like that. Like Sanjay says, I don't feel like I'm the whole dream. I feel like I'm this one person, this Mukta. This is what I feel. There are so many people in my dream. You are there, other people are there. I don't know what they are thinking. मुझे क्या पता? I'm just a little individual, dream individual. Right? That is how you think in the dream. Is that right?
Yeah.
But when you wake up, I tell you, Mukta, you created the whole thing. Would you believe me? There was nobody else to create it. Nobody else
Yeah.
who had access to your mind to create this whole dream. The bus was you. Sanjay in the dream was you. Your husband in the dream was also you. I was also you. Everything were your thoughts, which you created this world with. And the ignorance which you gave to the dream Mukta was also you, given by you. So you were a little Ishwar for your dream, who created the dream and created the ignorance. And the technology that you used to do all that, the capability is Maya. Now, what is that technology, that magic? I don't know. I mean, nobody knows. But we can see it in action all the time. Not only in a dream, you can project your thoughts right now and you can imagine. Close your eyes or not even close, you can daydream. You have the ability to conceive of something which doesn't exist. Right now, you guys are conceiving about something called Brahman, which you can't see, it's just a thought, or about something else. All this is Maya. How can this happen? And like we never think about it, but it's happening. It's there every day. That's Maya. The ability to create, Vikshepa, the ability to hide. And that is how you create an individual. To create an individual, you have to give that individual ignorance. Otherwise, there is no fun. There is no experience. So the creator to give that, both of them are Maya. And that's why they say Maya has these two abilities. So that's Maya. So does that sort of answer? There's no better answer than
To
this.
quite an extent.
Yes, there's no better answer.
That's quite a
Yeah.
good example.
Nitu,
the
can you
word I-
also say a little bit more about what, when Swamiji says incidental property, I've never understood what incidental property means. What
Incidental
is that
property
meant?
just means that it doesn't have to, if it's there, it's possible to be there at one time. It's possible for it not to be there at another time. It'll make no difference.
But so, and also can Brahman Brahman has a property?
Yeah, it has a, see, again, there are no words, right? So let's say there was no word called incidental. I'm just trying to tell you there's a dream. You have the ability to dream. Similarly, Brahman, which is you, again, the same thing in the waking state is the same thing. There's a you in the waking state who thinks everything is disconnected and different, who will say, how is it possible? But from the waking state, if you only through knowledge, there's no other way. Because from a dream, you can't get out from dream to a waking at your will. When it happens, it happens. So only through knowledge, you can say through an example, this is what it's saying, that, and giving you all kinds of reasons and all kinds of angles to tell you that there is something called Brahman, which is what you are, which is the common thing amongst all, which has created all this world, has created all you, right? It is created through something called Maya. And then people ask, oh, if there's Maya, then there are two different things. There's Maya and there's Brahman. And then, so like it's all, when you start using words, you can get lost. So you can the same words you can say, you can use to find issues and problems.
Yeah.
And the same words you can use to find answers. It's up to you. That's what is Shraddha. You use, if you're trying to find, I mean, not that you are doing it. You're not doing it.
Thank you.
I'm just trying to say that this is what happens,
Can I ask another
Yeah,
is it
yeah,
okay if
please.
I ask a question? Okay.
Yeah.
So this is actually related to what Sanjay was asking, which is, I don't know if you had the same experience, but I think that I have some fear about losing my sort of like a loss of my notional existence as Kiki. If I when I meditate and I really kind of, suspend any, when I focus on me, my being, it feels like there's a concurrent loss of me as this person. And I don't know if this is Sanjay, Rajiv, I don't know.
Totally understandable. That is the basic reason why, which is holding us back from owning up to this knowledge. And it's purely because we, in spite of whatever else we say, we think we are this name and form.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to lose themselves. You feel that by not owning up to your Kiki, you lose yourself. That's the problem. Vedanta is just going to tell you, you will not. Because this thing of you being Kiki that you identified with this self is not correct. That self exists and all that is correct. But what you don't realize is that underneath this self is Brahman. Holding this together is Brahman. And this feeling that I'm going to lose myself, this feeling of Kiki, all this rests on Brahman, and that Brahman is never going to go away anywhere.
But for instance, when we say the things in our life that we experience as separate beings, relationships, for instance, those do get lost. Like there is loss, right? And how does truly the knowledge that I am Brahman take care of that loss?
What is one of the big prerequisites for gaining this knowledge?
Yeah.
What?
Purity of Antakarna Shuddhi.
There are four, they say four Chatushtaya Sampatti. Do you know what they are? Kind of.
Vivek.
Yeah.
Vairagya.
Yes.
Mumukshutvam and Shraddha, I think.
So Vairagya. No, Mumukshutvam and sixth, it's not Shraddha, it's Shat Sampatti.
Right.
Different.
Yeah.
So Vairagya is a big one. What does Vairagya mean? Understanding the truth of these relationships. So if you don't have Vairagya, if these relationships continue to be so important for you, it is going to be very hard for you to make that jump. That is why it's a component of, that is why it is one of the prerequisites. That is why they say work on Antakarna Shuddhi first. Work on trying to find out what are you expecting from these relationships. What, like for you, these relationships seem to be making, and not for you, by you, I'm taking a convenient example for all of us.
Yeah.
These relationships seems to be causing an identity for us. It's like, right?
Yeah.
So the thinking we have to do is that really true? You know, is that actually the case? What is the truth of these relationships? That is Vairagya. So that is why, you know, what you're saying is proving the case. QED, you know.
Yeah. I mean, it's taken me a long time to hone into this, but you know.
That's
Yeah.
okay. You've never had a good teacher so far. You see, that's why.
So Dheeraj, I just wanted to share another thing. You know, Mukta was talking about Maya, right? So what I really find very unsettling, right, is the concept of Maya. You know, it's illusionary, right? It projects. But then, you know, we discussed this in the scope of a dream, right? And you know the power of Maya, and you explained, okay, look what Maya, you know, what is happening in the dream is all
Right.
concocted, and it's the, you know, Shakti of Maya. I think when I transition this to our lifetime, right, you know, the scary thought that we are all living this dream, a lifetime dream, right? And you know, we were, you know, you see what I'm
Yeah,
getting
I
at,
know what you
right?
mean. Yeah.
Is like, okay, you know, so we're just all living living a
Yeah,
long
I'll tell you what.
know.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. If one of the lectures, Swami Sarvpriyananda, which you guys have all heard, right? Mukta, you heard Sarvpriyananda?
Yeah.
He was telling us, I think maybe in one of the lectures, maybe it was on Mandukya only. He said, never read Mandukya before you've read other Upanishads. You know, he says
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
He says you will go mad, you'll go crazy, because you'll start thinking like this. Oh my God, am I living a dream? Right? It's like it's the if we just go gradually, we understand what we understand step by step, in the conviction that nothing existentially bad is going to happen. With that conviction, with that knowledge, with the conviction that there is a God, if you want, or Brahman, which is always there, has always been there, will always be there. Nothing has changed. You keep that faith and conviction in your mind. For right now, call it faith if you want it. It's called faith is what? It's called Shraddha. Shraddha is faith pending knowledge. Right? So till that knowledge is complete, have that faith and go gradually. Because otherwise, you know, our mind, because we are trying to change our point of view, there are all kinds of thoughts which will happen, all kinds of fears which will come out. And all these fears that Kiki described and you're describing, Rajiv, they are good things that they're coming out. Because then you can see them and you can identify them. So far, you didn't even know that these fears existed in us. Now you know that these fears exist. And you are literally saying, okay, I'm strong enough now to say, let them come out and let me deal with them. This is going to happen because we are changing our point of view.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Well,
But
scary
it doesn't have to happen in a rush. You can take
yeah,
your time. You can take a holiday, you know, relax.
yeah. No, the beauty of all this really is, you know, the, you know, knowledge is bringing this better understanding that, yeah, I mean, you know, it is what it is, right?
Yeah, it is what it
You
is.
know, and it's like, you know, you know, sometimes when you don't have the knowledge, you don't care. Now, when you have the knowledge, then you start thinking about it, right?
Yes.
So it takes a little bit of manana to kind of question and try to understand, and then move to nidhyasana to kind of say, okay, you know, I get this, you know, through a knowledge, you know, it's it's like you said, you cannot experience Brahman, but your way to think about it is knowledge
Yeah,
and try to
you can't
live that
experience, but
knowledge.
it doesn't mean you can't have conviction in it.
Yeah,
It doesn't mean that at
exactly.
all.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you can't experience Brahman as a separate thing. What you have to realize is that everything is Brahman. You've been
Brahman.
experiencing it all along.
Mhm.
There's never been a moment when you haven't experienced it because it's you. You've always been there. It's nothing new. But yeah,
Okay, everything is Brahman. Everything is Brahman. And you can have conviction. Okay, to know Brahman, you have to use your brain and mind,
yeah.
or you have to use your heart channel to get that feeling.
Well, I mean, okay. So again, very in the words of Swami Paramarthananda, this Vedanta is an intellectual exercise. And one of the things you have to do is have a sharp mind. And that is why there is this preparation about, upasanas and all are being done. Because you have to have an open mind and a sharp mind, which can grasp things. So yes, you are using the mind. You're using the mind to understand, because that is the only avenue for understanding Brahman. But it doesn't mean that it's only an intellectual exercise. So in other words, it might have been very easy. It's not that you require huge amounts of intellect. So you require a mind which is able to grasp things. But the problem is not that the mind is dull. Most of us, many people, mind is dull. But nobody here in this group has a dull mind. We are the top 0.001% of intellect in this world. All of us. Right? The problem is that our mental, emotional issues and our mental, emotional problems, where we are not 0.01% of the world, top, where we may be the top 50% of the world, those interfere with our understanding. Our fears interfere with our ability to understand. And we haven't spent that time cleaning up our emotional side the way that we have spent the time cleaning up our intellectual side. All our education has been on the intellectual side. But how do you deal with life? How do you deal with disappointments in life? How do you deal with relationships in life? How do you deal with issues? We have never spent the time. Vedanta is saying now spend the time. Get comfortable with them so that then you can understand, you can go back. Your mind, your thinking is not your issue. Right? That's what Vedanta is saying. And but at the end of the day, through cleaning your mind, you're not going to gain the knowledge of Brahman. Through cleaning your mind, you're going to let it stop interfering with your thinking, because you're gaining the knowledge through your head, through your thinking. That's how the two are related to each other. Okay, so you can't say it's only about thinking, because then you will just have a conceptual understanding. You'll be buried in your own emotional baggage, never addressing it, never knowing it.
In one of the lectures, I'm forgetting the name who was lecturing, he clearly said, we people try to know about Brahman, know about everything, reach that goal of moksha through our heads and minds. But the real channel is opening the heart for it. It's like trying to listen through your eyes. You will never listen through your eyes. You see, you have to open the right channels to reach there. That's what I was asking.
I don't know what that means. I mean, honestly, because I wonder whether what he's trying to say is, he's trying to say you have the challenge is to clean up your Antakarna Shuddhi, because that is the challenge. Because the thinking part of it is not really the challenge. If you were to think about Brahman as an entity, you can think about it very clearly. The problem is saying, I am Brahman, owning up to it. That has less to do with intellectual ability. It has to do with emotional fears. So that is what he might mean, that open up the channel. Because that is all there is. There's nothing stopping you right now from owning up to your Brahman, except your whatever is in your mind, or in ours is what I should say, not yours, because we are all in the same boat. But there is nothing. But again, if you're taking from it, what he's saying is opening the channel of the heart means you're going to experience Brahman. That is not correct.
No,
And again,
not experience Brahman. You see, when we are talking about moksha and salvation and everything, what exactly are we talking? What exactly is the ultimate goal? So to reach that goal, you cannot reach it through your brain and minds and logical thinking. You have to open your heart channel. It is through love only, he says, you can reach there, and the center of love is heart. This is what he meant.
yes, I mean, again, to me, the way I see it, and you should find out more and share with us. There could be something we're missing. The way I understand it is, when he says through love, right? He's trying to say, work on your heart. Work on your heart and your emotional side. Because if you have like a clean mirror, we talked about the mirror last time, right? If you have a clean mirror, a big indication of that is love. What will shine through that mirror is love. What will shine through is compassion, fellow feeling. All the, what we call the good qualities, they will come naturally for a person who is Antakarna Shuddhi. So what he's trying to say is, and I agree with that entirely, is that if you want to really have moksha, you need those things. That's where moksha comes from. But technically speaking, and this is what Vedanta keeps reminding us, technically speaking, the reason why Vedanta says it's an emotional exercise is not that it doesn't want you to start thinking that you're going to experience Brahman, that you're going to experience something different and some enlightenment is going to happen, a big event of enlightenment is going to happen. I mean, it says that very clearly. You don't want to avoid you from thinking like this, कि मैं अपना mind खोलूंगा तो मुझे कोई enlightenment हो जाएगी. It's saying no. At the end of the day, moksha is knowledge. At the end of the day, it is conviction through knowledge that there is Brahman. But you can't get that conviction till your heart is open, or your channel of heart is open. So it's a question of how you want to play. I mean, what you want to emphasize. That's just a matter of emphasis.
In this, what I have understood about this is, where do you say, where is the mind located? There is no place, I think. I mean, we may think it is brain, but it is not there anywhere. So
Right.
in that language which we speak, we call it heart. So we say it is the heart. I think it might be that. It might be that subtle body, that the mind. And there are some people who say ki heart ke liye, it's not that physical heart they're talking about.
They're referring to subtle
Probably it
body.
is, yeah, I think so.
I think that's very possible, because these the terminologies can be very different. Yeah, I think you're very right, Mukta. Because people, when you say mind, it means different thing to different people. Like to me, the moment you say mind, it means a subtle body, because that's what I've learned. But to the person who's Sanjay is listening to, the mind might mean the brain, because people also refer to the mind as the reasoning power, right? He has a sound mind, reasoning power. That's not what I think of when I think of mind. I think about the subtle body, the manas. So it's very possible. And what he calls manas, or the subtle body, is the heart. Whereas for me, heart has no place in this whole thing, right? I mean, it's just an organ. So I think you're right. We have to be careful about terminology. Very possible. Good.
Now, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Like, I want some explanation about the causal body or Karan
Yes.
Sharir. What is
Yes.
it?
Okay, very good.
How do you explain what is causal body?
Yes, it's a very
Like
different.
physical
Yeah.
body, we understand.
Yeah.
Subtle body, we understand.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand.
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
what is causal? What do you describe the causal body as?
Okay.
What is
So
it?
to understand causal body, you have to understand the concept of manifestation and unmanifest. ठीक है? Like कर्मास जो करते हैं हम, काम करते हैं कर्मा, that's a manifested action, right? But हम कहते हैं हमारे संचिता कर्मा है.
Mm.
वो कर्मा हम कर तो नहीं रहे. So what are they? They are unmanifest karmas, right?
Yeah.
They're unmanifest. So subtle body and physical body deals with manifest things. Just like the subtle body of the universe, which is Hiranyagarbha, and the sthula body, the physical body of the universe is Virat, this that you see. They're both manifest. In dreams, you're manifesting, dreams with subtle body hoti hai, you're manifesting the world around you in a dream. It's a different feeling, I mean, a different world, but once you're in the subtle body, you can't make the distinction कि ये subtle है और ये gross है. For you, it'll be gross. So, but there is something called the unmanifest body, where all the unmanifest things reside. So your sanchita karmas reside in your unmanifest body. That is the causal body. And why it's called causal is because it's the sanchita, because it holds the sanchita karmas. And the sanchita karmas is from where your prarabdha karma comes, and it's those prarabdha karmas which cause your body. When your karmas are wiped off, there is no more body. So your causal body is gone. So moksha means getting rid of your causal body. When all your karmas, sanchita, prarabdha, everything, agamis have not accumulated, sanchita are wiped off. That means your causal body has gone. So there is no more cause for your subtle body and your physical body to be manifest. That's the causal body. And that causal body exists, and they say it is related to the dream sleep because, I mean, not dream sleep, sorry, deep sleep.
Deep sleep, yeah.
Yeah, because in the deep sleep, you've lost everything else. There is no dream. You've lost all sense of individuality, but you haven't because your causal body is still active. Those karmas are still there. And the moment you get up, those karmas again manifest back. So that's the difference between deep sleep and moksha. In other words, is in deep sleep you still have a causal body, which causes you to wake up and causes you to re-manifest as dream and physical being. But when you have moksha, the causal body is also gone. So there's no more waking up. There's no more punarjanam. But the causal body remains the same. Depending upon which prarabdhas coming out of the causal body are there, you have different lifetimes. So when one set of prarabdhas comes out, then you have, during the lifetime, you're having multiple cycles of dream and waking, dream and waking, dream and waking, dream and waking, till those prarabdhas are gone. Then that is gone. Then you get a new physical body, right? And it works all over again. So that's causal body. So causal body can't be visualized because unmanifest can't be visualized.
Okay.
Right? So similarly, on the physical side, on the universe side, there is the physical universe, the mental universe, which is Hiranyagarbha, and there is the causal universe, which is Ishwar. The causal universe is called Ishwar. Because Ishwar is the cause of this universe. Ishwar holds the collective karmas of everybody. And from those, it causes the universe to manifest. That's why we call Ishwar the cause of the universe and the causal body of the universe. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm glad you asked it because this is not an easy concept. मेरे को भी बड़ी देर लगी थी ये समझने में. कोई बोलता ही नहीं था, सब कहते थे causal body, but then
हाँ,
I
कोई explain नहीं करता
हाँ,
उसको
करता था,
ज़्यादा.
right. हाँ, because it's not very relevant at, for the methodologies.
Yeah.
Atul to so gaya hoga, I think, by now. Like, I've never seen Atul so quiet for so long. It's a very strange feeling.
I've been enjoying Vedanta in the company of wine, so
What are any comments, my friend? Sitting in the Sao Paulo lounge. He's trying to wake up. He's trying to collect his thoughts.
नहीं, I think in some ways it all comes down to acceptance. Because you're talking about different channels of listening. You can't listen through your eyes, that sort of a thing. So that conversation sort of reminded me it's a matter of acceptance, and that has its goodness, but that also is where I have my criticism of it. At least the way we have learned how to learn, it doesn't pass through that. Okay, you learn through reason, you learn through logic, you learn through experimentation, but you don't learn from faith.
From faith, yeah.
But again, the paramount point is not learning. So, in other words, the fact that you don't learn from faith is no reason to disqualify it, because maybe my goal is higher than learning. My goal, acceptance, might be the higher goal. So I mean, those are my thoughts. अगर
Good thoughts.
Questions करने हैं तो बहुत questions हैं.
Okay.
But if you want to accept,
Time क्या है?
then I think
9:26 हो गया. I mean, like,
but then you can accept with some relative ease once you are willing to accept.
yeah. I mean, it's not, I wouldn't say that it's really learning through faith. Faith is a part of it.
I
It's
mean,
faith is,
acceptance through faith. Learning नहीं.
okay.
But acceptance through faith.
Acceptance तो यार बहुत आगे की बात है. I'm saying acceptance means for it to accept, you have to say, I am Brahman. That is acceptance.
Yeah, but that is see, if you reach that, then nothing else matters.
Right.
So the question is, how do you reach that? And I think what I'm suggesting is that to reach that, accepting that concept is a lot easier than arriving at that concept through our own mechanism, through the method of learning that we are familiar with.
Yeah, so it is not possible to accept that concept. I think, in my opinion, and in the opinion of Vedanta, you cannot accept that I am Brahman. It is such a difficult thing to accept based on faith.
Sure.
Because
Yeah.
faith, Vedanta's point is, every faith has its price. That's what Vedanta
Faith is
says.
what? Every faith is what?
Has its price. At some point, that faith will break. Howsoever strong your faith is, there is always a
I
point
totally
at
agree.
which that faith will break.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And therefore, you can't rely on faith. Faith can only take you this far. So that's all Vedanta is saying is, give me rope.
I love that. If that's the case, I totally love that. But then that begs the question.
So then that is
because
why
I've
you
given
have to
myself
do.
a way out.
But that is what you have to do. You have to do is, what you have to do is do the hard task of trying to understand something which is very different, in a way which is very different from the way that you understood everything else in the past. That's the hard task you have to do.
But what is the difference? What is if you still
The
think that
difference is everything that you have learned in the past, your whole process is about taking yourself and learning.
But you're still presenting it as not a matter of faith, because like you said, faith will ultimately break.
Yes.
So you still position it as learning, but you're saying that it's a different methodology for learning.
Absolutely. It's a different methodology.
So I want to know, what is the difference? What is it that I have to add, or what is it that I have to suspend to allow for this
you have to
new
suspend,
method of learning?
You have to, before suspending, you have to think that how could you think about it for yourself? Let's present a challenge to you. The challenge is, there is a you, which is Atul, which is not your body, not your body, because you know you can see your body. But there is a you within you, whatever you want to call it. You have to learn about that you. You have to know that you. How would you know it? Maybe ask yourself that question. What's the way to learn about me? That's Atul. Not about Mukta, Sanjay, everybody else, but about me. And take your time. You don't have to answer it right now. We don't even have the time for it. We're almost at the end of the
But
thing.
then let's say that somehow I get there. 2
Yeah.
days, 2 years, 20 years.
Okay.
Then what will happen? Or will the answer itself be that when I see myself and I understand myself, I will see Brahman?
Yeah, so there, have faith, which is it's worth answering that question. That's the faith you have.
That I understand.
Because I can tell
For
you what
various
will happen,
reasons.
but you won't believe it. What I can tell you will happen is, what I'll tell you will happen is you will come to a realization which will be life transforming, which will make you see this whole world differently by answering that question.
How many people get? I accept that also, and it's a worthy incentive. But how realistic is it? And the way I'll answer that, the way I'm asking that question and seeking an answer is what's the success rate? How many people
So
make an attempt?
here's my thing to it, and this is again, I go back to the 4 qualifications of Vedanta. One of them qualifications is mumukshutvam.
Huh?
Mumukshutvam. That is a strong desire to know. Maybe for you it's not important right now. But for me, when I set about on this, what was the success rate didn't even matter. Nothing else.
Yeah, but are you successful? I accept that altogether. It doesn't matter what the others are not, but are you successful?
I mean, like, how do you want me to answer that question? Yeah, I think I'm successful. I'm happy with the progress I have made, and I'm happy that I'm making more progress, and I have no regrets.
तो मैं भी कह सकता हूँ.
बस ठीक है फिर खुश रहे तू यार.
I'm happy with the progress I've made. I'm happy with where I am.
Yeah.
Now, maybe we are at 2 very different points, but
No,
as
no,
far
no,
as
no,
happiness
no, no.
and contentment is concerned, I don't think I'm any less happy.
So then
than
I
you.
think then I would say you are not the target audience for Vedanta.
नहीं, वो तो खैर वो तो पुरानी
वो
बात
तो
हो
पता
गई.
ही है. That's a
वो
well-known
तो
thing.
I'm an imposter in this group. I recognize that.
No, it's okay. I mean, I was just trying to explain to you.
And I'm the first one to admit it. मतलब class ऐसे कि मैं तो audit कर रहा हूँ.
I mean, you're very lucky, yeah. I mean, in a way.
No, I am. Yeah.
Okay.
चलो अब तो इंडिया में तो काफी देर हो गई.
1.5 hours भी हो गए हैं अब.
I have another 4 hours to kill, but you guys have.
Okay.
Chalo. All right. So next, after 2 weeks then? Yeah?
Yeah, after 2 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.
Okay, bye. Bye-bye.